Mike Gallagher.
I really appreciate Americans for Prosperity, sponsors of the Mike Gallagher Show today, and I wanted to bring out the senior fellow in fiscal policy because, look, I need some brainiacs on this government shutdown because all the usual drama is occurring. The Democrats are blaming the Republicans. Republicans are blaming the Democrats. Just heard a caller say, I hope this shutdown doesn't hurt us in the midterms. Kurt Couchman is the senior fellow in fiscal policy for Americans for Prosperity. If you can't find a better guest than Kurt on this complicated, tricky, polarizing issue. How you doing, Kurt?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Mike.
My pleasure. Now, look, the Republicans have made it clear, Kurt, they want a fairly clean continuing resolution. Democrats want this absurd $1.5 trillion increase in spending. Can you walk us through it, talk in layman's terms, help us understand if there's any chance at a compromise or are we headed for a government shutdown?
Right. So what's happened so far is that the House has passed a fairly clean continuing resolution to get us through November 21st. This is for the 12 appropriations bills that collectively cover about a quarter of federal spending and none of the revenue, which is part of the problem. And then in the Senate, in the House, only Republicans, except for one Democrat, voted for it. And so in the Senate, that came up, didn't pass, Democrats didn't vote for it. Democrats had their own proposal for a whole bunch of things, including an additional $1.5 trillion in spending over the next 10 years. Look, we need less spending, not more spending. So that would be going very much in the wrong direction. And Democrats aren't really, I don't think, expecting to get the whole thing, but what they're trying to do is lock in the Biden COVID tax credit expansion that came during the pandemic to build on the Obamacare tax credits for health insurance for some people. Pandemic's over. Like, that should sunset. And
right.
They're not going to come to a deal anytime soon. They've got to have a little bit of suffering before they're going to be able to come to the table.
You know, one of the challenges, I think, when we think about the emotion of a government shutdown, I like to believe that Republicans, couched by great organizations, frankly, like Americans for Prosperity, are fiscally responsible or strive for fiscal responsibility. Democrats, we know, do not. But to many Americans, they're suspicious of spending from both parties. Both political sides of the aisle tend to overspend. You're legendary for your work on balanced budget amendment design, all the kind of stuff you've done. Where are we right now as we get ready to head into October 1st, 2025? Do you see the Trump Republican Party as the fiscally responsible entity and the AOC, Hakeem Jeffries, Ilhan Omar Democrat Party, the irresponsible ones in terms of fiscal plans? I mean, am I oversimplifying? Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I mean, the country is in a really dangerous position right now. Today is the last day of fiscal year 2025, and we just borrowed another almost $2 trillion this fiscal year. This administration has been actually talking about cutting spending, which has been amazing. The DOGE effort didn't quite pan out the way that we all hoped it would, but they were talking about it. And this administration, with congressional Republicans, have been looking for ways to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse. They did a lot of that through the reconciliation bill. We're now calling it the Working Families Tax Credits legislation. And they cut an enormous amount of nonsense, including all the subsidies or almost all the subsidies for green energy. So there is progress being made. There's a lot more to be done. And we need to have a better system so that Congress can be a better partner for the administration in going after the nonsense. There is a clear partisan divide, but there's also hope for cooler heads on both sides coming together to fix the system. So I don't think it's quite as stark as all that, but right now the energy for cutting spending and controlling waste is definitely on the Republican side.
We're visiting with Kurt Couchman, Senior Fellow in Fiscal Policy for Americans for Prosperity. In fact, your book came out in July, Fiscal Democracy in America, How a Balanced Budget Amendment Can Restore Sound Governance, and real important work, and we appreciate the job that you've done there. Let's talk for a moment about essential services at 12:01 tonight, or midnight tonight. What happens? Give me the distinction. That's a distinction that is determined by the administration itself, right?
That's right. Yeah, Congress never created shutdowns. This was something that the Carter administration came up with in 1980 based on a totally different reading of a law that had been around for almost a century. And they came up with the difference between essential and non-essential employees. And that basically means that essential work is the sort of thing that is for the nation's defense, our homeland security, law enforcement, protecting life, so things like medical services. Not every medical service, things that can be postponed often will be. And then other things will be shut down or paused for a period of time. So a lot of the grant making won't happen to state and local governments, to tribal governments, to nonprofit organizations, lots of things like that. And then that will all pick up again once Congress, passes the fairly clean continuing resolution, which is in the Senate's hands right now. But in the meantime, there are a lot of federal employees that will not be working. They'll be furloughed, and they will be getting back pay. The first legislation that passed in it was 2019. The first legislation passed in 2019 was to guarantee back pay for furloughed federal workers. So we're not even going to save any money on that, which we hadn't historically anyway, but there was a question mark up until that point.
I appreciate your work so much, and thank you for taking time to visit with us. And I appreciate the job that Americans for Prosperity continues to do. You should be involved. Don't be on the sidelines anymore. Go to americansforprosperity.org and make sure your voice is heard, because AFP is doing great work, especially on an issue like this. And Kurt, we appreciate your guidance and your clarity on this. Again, americansforprosperity.org. Kurt Couchman, I'm glad you joined us. Keep fighting the good fight.
Thanks so much for having me. And we're a grassroots organization. We're involved nationwide, so please get involved with your local AFP affiliate.
Amen. You bet. You bet. It'd be a good thing to do. Thanks. Kurt Couchman, Americans for Prosperity's senior, not junior, senior fellow in fiscal policy, and we love it.